And so there's finding ways to just insert more of that human element, because we all have fears, we all have concerns, we all have objections to whatever it is. But if you can up what we call humanization automation, that H to H, the human to human sort of feeling, you can just, truly differentiate yourself from what everyone else out there is doing.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It's my pleasure to have Draye Redfern with us. Draye is the founder of Redfern Media, a marketing and media agency, also the founder of fractionalcmo.com, which offers marketing guidance and strategy for business owners, founder of Ultimate Advisor Coaching, a consultancy for financial advisors, and founder of bikecar.com, a cargo bike company for families in urban cities. Draye's been featured in Forbes, Inc. magazine, AOL, Huffington Post, and Psychology Today. Draye, it's so great to have you on the show.
Excited to be here, man. Excited to jump into some fun stuff together.
Yeah. I just really enjoyed our conversations. So we know each other through Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind connection network, whatever you want to, however you want to refer to it, which is a great group of people. And you're just one of those great people that I'm so happy to know. If you could maybe start with your origin story, and I don't know how personal you want to get, or we've all had our dark night of the soul and that sort of thing. And if you want to share how your origin story has impacted your businesses, your mission, the strategies you employ, how you're able to scale and add efficiencies. I'd be happy to start there if you would.
Yeah, I think that for me, I had originally I was going to be a professional cyclist, and I had done racing all over the U.S. and I had getting paid to ride my bike, which is pretty much the coolest thing in the world as a young 18, 19-year-old kid. Did some racing in Europe and in Italy. And I ended up having some heart issues. And long story short, ended up having heart surgery at the age of 19, which basically shattered my entire professional career. We can go down a really long rabbit hole there. But the long story, the short version of it was that they were prescribing beta blockers for a condition of mine that was bradycardia and tachycardia. My heart rate was going fast when it shouldn't and slow when it shouldn't. But at the end of the day, what they were prescribing was actually what was making me worse, month after month after month after month. And all it took was, even higher level of supplementation than I was already doing, and I could have maintained my pro status and not had to have heart surgery and all of these things. I only found out later that the anesthesiologist who we had requested, who was a friend of the family, told us, over a couple glasses of wine, over significantly later, that I went code blue on the operating table, which means flatline. Like, that was not supposed to happen. So the 90-minute procedure took 5 hours, and that was one of the reasons why. So after a short period of time of pharmaceutical grade vitamin supplements and all this sort of stuff, I got my essentially pro card back. I started racing at that level again. And 6 months after that, I was T-boned. I was riding my bike, T-boned by a 17-year-old kid texting and driving. And bike got sucked underneath the car. I went over the car, landed 15 feet on the opposite side of the car, and had internal bleeding and neck injuries and back injuries and so many things for about a period of 3 years. So at that point in time, I didn't need the third time to be the charm that would take me out of the game and out of life permanently. So I was like, well, let me pursue business. After several years, in 23, 24, whatever it was, starting one of my own companies. I'd, co-owned another one, but I was starting one of my own companies. And on January 2nd, 2015, I had bought the ring for my soon to be then fiance, now wife. And on January 15th, 2015, 13 days later, my wife, who is a world-renowned wedding photographer, had her entire business shattered in a matter of 10:32 p.m. at January 15th, 2015, that someone made up a whole bunch of lies and went to the news, and they ran a story basically saying that my wife was holding their images hostage, like my wife is a terrorist. This person was a blogger and had a lot of, decently large social media following. and completely just disparaged her all over the internet for what we found out later in the lawsuit was basically for her own gain in order to, garner advertising revenue and clicks and all these sorts of things. What they didn't figure was that we would fight back. And so the following week, we put an open letter out there. This is Wednesday of the following week. And this is how viral our story went on the early days. That open letter was read 1.2 million times in 48 hours in 195 countries. And so fast forward 3 years of, fighting this lawsuit and $5,000 retainer after $5,000 retainer after $5,000 retainer, we'd burned through just shy of $400,000 that we had in savings, well on our way to spend $1 million fighting a lawsuit. As we got to the end of it, and there's, it's a whole other rabbit hole we can go into as far as, First Amendment, free speech protections and all of these sorts of things, which is great. But there are limits to what you can say. Like, you can't scream fire in a movie theater. Like, there's obviously limits to things. I ended up having about $500,000 on my credit cards, which was, mostly on my Amex at 20-something% interest. So the interest alone every year was $100,000, and I couldn't pay it because my business was just getting, going. My wife had no income anymore. And at that point in time, I think, dealing with, heart issues and getting hit by a car, and now I'm trying to build businesses and we're massive debt trying to fund a lawsuit. Like, my first basically 6 to 8 years of entrepreneurship was absolutely awful. But it's those scars, I think, that you learn from and you take a lot away from it. That made me who I am today. So you fast forward, we have a week-long jury trial. That jury trial, we ended up winning, and we won $1.08 million, having spent $1 million. So not really a, financial win by any means. However, in the following week, our story got 400 million impressions because it was the first instance of a business being disparaged with negative reviews and fabrication of all of these sorts of things, defamation, and actually fighting back and winning because there's free speech protections and all of these sorts of things. It was the first sort of lawsuit setting case law and precedent across the U.S. That really changed the tide with a lot of this. And I feel like a lot of businesses can probably relate to that because I've had a negative review, or that the way that they said it happened on this review online wasn't the way that it actually occurred. All of these sorts of things. Most of the time, you can't do anything about it. In our case, we could because you have to prove damages. But it was just a variety of things that one thing led to another. So Good Morning America and USA Today and CNN. It's 400 million impressions and things that my wife was on with all of this sort of stuff. So that was the one of the I'd say culminating moments of looking back in entrepreneurship, going like, I had to figure all of these things out. I had employees that I had to rely on. I think that I needed to dial more things in my life and figure out that I realized, and I had to do it faster because I basically had a gun to my head with massive amounts of debt that was crushing me and a business that couldn't support it. So that's how it all started. And then from there, I joined, in the middle of all of that, I joined Genius Network. So it's like, what's another 25 grand when I'm, 500,000 in the hole? And I ended up meeting Jay Abraham from that, helped him out with some stuff. I met my, now longtime friend and client, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So we've run all of, his marketing and sales for the last 6 years. So I met some really high level people that became a catalyst and a launching pad to go on and make millions of dollars with, for ourselves and for our clients, and take things to the next level, both for my wife, my family. So now we operate 4 companies. I live a life that I couldn't have really even imagined, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and employ dozens and dozens of people. And it's become one of these things where had I not looking back on those, or had I not had those experiences, I probably would not be in this position. It's like the old Sean Stephenson quote, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So the lessons that, learned from that period of time and having those experiences had gone a long way in order to, provide perspective and insight on a variety of things. So that, I would say, is the origin story in, 5 minutes or so, or whatever it's been. that we could certainly go down and explore. We're happy to talk a lot more of the marketing side of things and what some of the, the A-list or A-level people out there that are doing marketing wise that maybe isn't as publicly talked about as maybe it should be.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. What a journey. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open about what you experienced and all the struggles. And it really sounds like you were backed into a corner in some respects.
Very much backed into a corner. But I think at the end of the day, you always have options. So even though an option, there's fight, flight, or freeze. And so most people, when dealing with very stressful situations, will probably just freeze. They don't know what to do. Analysis paralysis kicks in, so they don't do anything. For us, it was, I come from 15 years of, the insurance space and risk management. And so it was a matter of taking all of the situations and, or all of the perspectives and taking a pause on it, looking at the options and you know what, we're going to fight. And so it wasn't in it, you can respond or you can react. And most people just react without, thinking through too many different things. We chose to respond and fight. Standing up for principles and things that you believe in, I think are really important, no matter where you at or how much you make or what your business is or what you believe in. But it's one of those things that if you actually know what those are and doing the right thing is important to you, then you figure out how to make all of the other things, you figure out how to piece it together is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And it goes so far beyond just making lemonade out of lemons. It's seeing the blessing in these challenges that are just disguised blessings or unrevealed blessings. And I think that's been something that in our conversations I've really been impressed by is you see a bigger picture.
Yeah, I think that you get knocked down enough and you keep telling yourself, I'm just going to get back up. I'm just going to keep giving it a shot, that you don't realize it in it. But you realize it in hindsight when it's 2020 and, the smoke is cleared, that it does give you a bigger picture. And the difficult things are what make people. The most successful people that I know have been dealt an absolute awful set of cards in their life across multiple things, whether that's family issues or being victims of various things or having addictions or having awful things happen to them. But you persevere through it. You have a level of resilience with which you tackle things. And I think that changes a lot of perspective of things when you look back on it. So it's, it's to say the Sean Stephenson thing again, it's, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I think that perspective really goes a long way.
Yeah. I had Sean Stephenson on my other podcast, Yourself Optimized. Yeah. Amazing soul. Yeah. If you could wave a magic wand and change anything about what happened for you over these years since you were 18, 19, would you change anything?
I don't know that I would.
Yeah.
Me in the moment would probably say, yeah, change it, take it away, make it go away, whatever, whatever. But looking back, it all brought me to the positions where I am now. At this point, last year I co-owned an insurance company. We had 8,700 law firms insured by the time we sold it. We sold it to the Berkshire Hathaway companies. This year I've exited one of my consulting companies. And I still have 4 more, pick a card, any card. Even in each of those experiences in going through and trying to sell a business, I relied on something that I learned 10, 15 years previously when it came to something that was completely unrelated in the negotiation of things or how you frame something. And so it's not any one thing. You aggregate, you amalgamate all of these ideas and concepts and experiences into who you are. So as much as it may be fun to go try and relive that, in a different way, I don't think if I could, I don't know if I would change anything.
That's very wise perspective. Yeah.
Thanks.
What gave you the insight that you knew you had to join Genius Network at that moment? That was another big expense when you least needed it, but you just knew somehow that this is an investment that's going to pay dividends. It's an essential part of my path. How did you know?
It's funny. These are one of the things I was having a conversation with my wife literally yesterday. And it's funny because growing up, we had about a 20-minute ride to school. And every day, my dad, who is also a business owner and entrepreneur, would play things like Zig Ziglar or Tony Robbins and all of Earl Nightingale, you name it. And as a young, elementary school kid, middle school kid, definitely high school kid, I'm like, Dad, I don't want to listen to this. This is awful. Like, blah, la, 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 trying to block it out because I don't want to listen to this. But he was like, completely disregarded everything that me and my younger siblings said because I'm number 4 of 7 children. And he'd play it anyway, wouldn't care. And it wasn't until probably the last 5 years that I realized the amount of psychological imprints that I had from that period of time that instilled a sense of resilience and perspective and insights that I would say the normal person probably wouldn't have. And so looking back, I think it's one of the coolest things that like now I want to try to give my kids. I've got a 14-year-old, almost 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And it's one of these things that I want to sort of, give that back in a sense, seeing what that personal and self-development looks like, not just today and the psychology changes you can make today over the course of a year, but what does that look like over 10, 20, 25 years? And I think that was those things like that gave the perspective and insight changes into all of it. And so it's sort of an indirect way of answering your question, but I think that would be one of the things that I've looked back on. And so it's probably one of the greatest advantages that I was given that maybe a lot of other people were not, was having that knowledge or skill sets to deal with extremely difficult times from a very young age.
Yeah. Is there one particular speaker or tape, CD, whatever, or book?
Yeah. And that was Awaken the Giant Within, the Tony Robbins one. And then that became, I got involved in a lot of the Tony Robbins stuff in my late teens, early 20s. That was actually how I met Joe Polish. Is we met at the Date with Destiny in 2014 in Florida. That's the one that was the documentary was made into. So we met there.
Yeah, that was a great documentary too.
Yeah, and you can see my crazy hair and my glasses in a couple of the shots, and Joe's bald head. And so I met Joe there, and like literally within the next week or 2 weeks, I was in Genius Network. And but it was being around all that, and having those sort of imprints from a young age, and being around, listening to the Tony Robbins stuff that put me in the position to be around Joe, and then that put me in the position to be around a lot of other high level people. So I think that one thing leads to another. So sort of circling back to what we were saying a second ago, if I could go back and change it, I don't know that I would, because that missing piece could be the domino that allowed a lot of these other things to keep flowing together.
Do you buy into the philosophy that these relationships and these epiphanies and milestones in your life were kind of preordained, predetermined?
Yeah, my wife would. And I ebb and flow on it. I grew up with, private Catholic school for most of my upbringing. And all the guilt to go with it that, I've dealt with that, but, all of the other sorts of things. But I think to some degree that I would agree with that. Yes.
I went to private Catholic schools all but 2 years of my childhood as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned resilience, and I want to bring up a concept that really made a difference in my life. It's anti-fragile, which is so much different and more evolved or impactful, at least for me, than just resilience. Because are you familiar with the book Anti-Fragile?
I am. Nassim Taleb. Yeah, great book.
He talks about economies being anti-fragile, immune systems, and Mother Nature, your various things being anti-fragile. And I thought, well, my personality can also be anti-fragile. My character can be anti-fragile. So if I'm not just resilient, I'm anti-fragile. That means I'm growing, I'm blossoming, evolving through these challenges, and they actually the stressors make me stronger.
Agree 100%. I'm writing a new book. Some interesting things that have been going on in the world that maybe we can, we'll go down that rabbit hole, called the Recession Survival Guide. And I have a whole section dedicated to anti-fragility. So it's definitely something that I resonate a lot with, because I think that it's, I don't want to sound like an old man, like I'm in my mid 30s. It's like when I was your age, that sort of thing. But I feel like, having younger employees and, younger, there's a different perspective of, I think there's a certain element of that is absolutely missing. So it's definitely something that, I'm a huge fan of Nassim Taleb, the books, and his way of thinking. So very much agree.
Yeah, very cool. So another book that I'm getting through right now, and so is my wife Ryan, is one of your clients' books. It's Be Your Future Self Now by Benjamin Hardy. And that is a great book and a great concept. So I'm curious to hear if you've gotten any insights from that book, and just generally from Ben working with him and having him as a client.
We took our daughter to dinner literally last night, and she's 14. And we were having very advanced psychology conversations with her of stuff that Ben talks about in Be Your Future Self Now, and the newer book, 10X is Easier Than 2X, and some of these sorts of things. And to her, Ben is just a normal dude, because he comes to our house several times a year. He stays with us. We whiteboard, the next webinar or whatever the thing is on this massive whiteboard behind me. Being around him and watching him flush out ideas months, sometimes years before they're actually like publicly known or discussed is one of the coolest things, knowing and being around Ben. But he's pushing the psychology world and the research around it in a way that no one else really is. Like, you've got your Carol Dweck's out there that have been the long time, like growth mindset. And you've got some of these other people out there that have been figureheads of the space. But Ben truly is like the pioneer around future self. And the science around it is so freaking cool, because nothing against therapy. I think therapy helps a lot of people. But most therapy is living, I'm here in the present, and I'm going to go relive the past in order to give it meaning, definition, whatever it is, so I could feel better or get over the, whatever this thing that I'm dealing with is in the present. And I don't want to downfall or downgrade anyone's experiences, because some people have very, very traumatic things. But what that causes is you live in your past, even though you're in your present. This happened to me, and that's the type of person that I am. And then your past or your present dictates your past. This is who I am, and it was dictated because this happened in my past. So you live this almost negative feedback loop that so many people get stuck in. Instead, if you live by your future self, and you're living from what your future self would do, then you in your present can change who you are today based off of what your future self would do. And the easiest example that you can do or embody with this is, especially if you have kids. Like for me, that one of the examples is, what would your 80-year-old self do or give or pay to come back to this moment right now when you're playing with your kids, or you're rolling around with them, or you're wrestling with them, or you're teaching them, or whatever it is, to live in that moment again? How many millions of dollars would you give up? How much of this or that notoriety or the accolades or the this or that would you give up to come back to that moment? And that gives so much perspective in so many things, because you, me, we're busy, we're running companies, we're doing different things. You got Slack messages and pings and rings. You get pulled in 1,000 different, avenues, that having that simple shift makes it so much greater to live your daily present life, knowing what your future self could do, what it would mean to them. And then you make decisions today based off of who that person is. Like if I wanted to be, shredded on a, bodybuilding stage, and that was my future self, then how would I make decisions today that would allow me to actually do that? Well, that becomes the frame with which you can then make decisions from. for me, I've got young kids, so I prefer the kids one. But it's definitely one of these things where it changes your whole dynamic of how you view things, the perspective, and just the overall just way you sort of go about living your life. So being around Ben and that type of thinking has, I'm incredibly grateful for it. And it's definitely, I think, both my wife, kids, and I, we all live with a little more of our future self than we ever did previously. So can't recommend that book enough. It's a great one.
Yeah, that's super cool. Super cool. One exercise I do, I just try to have this top of mind as much as I can. I can't say I do it every day, but pretty often. And this is something I learned, or I don't know, got the inspiration or intuition to practice before the Future Self book came out. But this is me imagining what it would be like to experience my life review after I pass back into non-physical. So my body has died. I'm reviewing my life, and what did I do in this moment? And am I happy I did that, or would I have, with more foresight or insight or responsibility instead of reactivity, would I have done it differently? So I kind of have one foot on the other side of the veil and one foot here, and I'm like, okay, am I living my best life, doing the right thing, making the right choices in this moment? How will this feel to me to watch this in my life review?
It's a good perspective. I like it.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I heard on Genius Network meeting, the last one, were you there at Genius Network?
I spoke at the last meeting last week.
That's right. You did. And you did a great job. I loved your talk.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I wasn't there in person. I joined via Zoom, but Dr. Bob Cialdini on the panel, he's talking about, don't congratulate the person's progress, even though that sounds like a good thing to do, because that gets them looking backwards at where they came from and where they are now. Congratulate them on their commitment. And I love that. That was just a gold nugget from... It's
acknowledging where the effort they put in and where they've come from, but it's basically future pacing them to keep that level of commitment, over a longer period of time into the future, instead of, you're right, just recognizing the past. Like, very, very awesome way of framing it.
Yeah. And that relates to this whole future self discussion. Okay, so let's talk about marketing in relation to Ben. You've done some incredible things for him, and I don't know what permissions he's given you to share some of those campaigns and the results and so forth. So if you don't have permission, then we can skip over this and
no, I can share. I can share a lot.
Okay, awesome. I'd love to hear, and I know our listeners are going to be really inspired by what you've done for Ben.
Yeah, I think that I've always sort of been a behind the scenes guy across the companies and the people we've worked with. And Ben is obviously a very front of stage person, which is great. So it sort of works well together. When I met Ben, it was his very first Genius Network meeting. And he was the number one writer on medium.com, and he was getting about 30,000 email opt-ins a month. And this is all stuff that he said publicly, so I can share all of this sort of stuff. But the previous year, he had made, I believe, $67,000 was the number, and which is, not bad money, but it's not great when you've got expenses and software and all of the other sorts of things that you got to do when trying to get an online business going. So I simply asked him, and this is something I wholeheartely believe, just give first, because there's so many things that come out of it, is that I was like, well, how are you monetizing all of these 30,000 people a month? To the tune of 380,000 people were on the email list. He goes, well, I'm not. So okay, I got this. So I built him a very simple funnel that ended up making him $10,000 a month passively, month after month. And after a period of, 3-4 months, whatever it was, he said something to the effect of, what else can you do? Because it was a $27 offer. It was like a nothing, throwaway offer sort of thing. It's like, what else can you do? So we ended up, pushing him. I helped to get him his first assistant, and sort of was behind the scenes with a lot of what it has become on the coaching side as far as the structure of things go. So there was he has an AMP program called the Accelerated Momentum Program, and multiple levels of that. There was gold, which is $1,000 a year, and platinum, which is $20,000 for the year. I think it is the highest level coaching and accountability program out there. I don't think any other program I've had access to a lot, and I've helped a lot of people. Nothing has been as high level accountability as that is. And so what we've done with that is, he's got an email list, so you can definitely utilize that some people don't have. But I think the interesting thing that has set apart or differentiated all of these things is, if you're selling a course, if you're selling a product, if you're selling whatever else, you got to know the avatar. Like, that's 100% true. You got to, I think that we can make fun of multiple companies just recently, like Bud Light, where I think that the avatar mix has been an issue. Even the big boys forget this. But if you know the avatar and you got that figured out, how do you take an offer and make it something that is not just a hell yes offer, but something that is like, I'm an absolute idiot if I don't take advantage of this? And then find a way to reverse that risk in whatever form or capacity that is. So with Ben, for the AMP Gold offer, it was spend $1,000 for the year. If you actually do all of the assignments and things that I tell you that you should do, and you get to the end of the year, you show the proof that you've transformed your life, then I will give you your money back, and I will give you an extra $1,000. Meaning I will pay you. I will literally double your money for you to transform your life. And people went nuts for that. And, there's obviously people you had to refund because they killed it over the course of the year, because that's what it was intended upon. And then you offload the front end of the risk reversal with, 30 days, money back guarantee, yada, 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 all of that sort of stuff. But it's things like that, just taking a unique spin. And even people that got refunded was like, hey, well, I don't want my money. I want to do it again for another year because my life is so much different now than it was previously. And those people go on and then eventually join the $20,000 a year program. So it's just taking simple things and what you're doing in your marketing and just finding unique ways to just, adjust small knobs that can have a big impact. It's like the saying, small hinges swing big doors. It's so accurate with so many people's marketing and how they view it that you might be right on the verge of something very, very massive, but just a couple small tweaks can take it to the next level.
So how many people did Ben end up refunding because they crushed their goals with the AMP Gold program?
I think that, at this point, there's been somewhere in the vicinity of 5,000 people that have been through that program, and maybe somewhere between 30 and 60 ended up wanting the refund. Because, naturally, the natural attrition in human tendency is, I do it for a month and then I lose my steam because whatever reason. You see how many people have tried to do Andy Frisella's 75 hard and they can't get past 10 days. The natural sort of human tendency. But I think that even the people that didn't want their money back or didn't qualify to get their money back, or they didn't request it, there are at this point thousands and thousands of testimonials and reviews of people that had completely radically transformed their life. And that's the cool stuff to make happen and build. Because, we can build a marketing funnel, or we can do this, or we can sell a product, or we can sell a tchotchke, and we get all of these things done. But when you actually see the transformation of someone who wanted to lose the 100 pounds and then they did, freaking incredible. Or someone who was dead broke, and then all of a sudden within 2.5 years, they've got a 7-figure business. Or, example after example, just really freaking cool to be around and see, people that are actually implementing and taking their life to the next level. So I think it's one of the more rewarding elements of being in the marketing space and doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, I would say.
So what's working now? Because times have changed a lot, and you don't hear much talk these days about webinars. You don't hear much talk these days about challenges. Have these things jumped the shark, or are they just kind of part of all marketing programs now, and so we're just not talking about it?
Everything is so much more saturated than it was even 2 years ago. Nothing in that of the stuff that you just mentioned is as effective as it was. So like for Ben, with the recent launch that we did for him, still did a webinar because it's very difficult to get high level psychology concepts into a 5-minute VSL. You just can't do it. But after the webinar, you can see where the drop-off rates are, et cetera. So something, if you're doing a webinar, that I'd recommend is then have a 5 to 8 minute version of the webinar. Same slides, but you're skipping a lot of it and you're only hitting the high points that you can send after the fact, almost like a VSL with the book a call button or these sorts of things. So it reinforces the decision they already made to join the webinar. Everything is branded the same. And so you're like, here's the Cliff Notes version. Because in this super ADD society that we live in, people want everything now. I want Amazon Prime. I'll order it this morning and I want it this afternoon. And this instant gratification dopamine hits that we have, sometimes you got to play to that. And so you want to have the higher level educational elements, but you can find ways to take consolidated versions of it after the fact in follow-up sequences or whatever it is, and you can bump your conversion rates up a lot that way. That's one element. I think that one of the things that I've been really closely tracking over the last year, since about this time last year when the definition of a recession just magically changed because no one wanted to say that we were in a recession, is that I think we're bound for something that's going to be very, very negative. Maybe that's this year, maybe it's next year. On average, recessions happen about every 7 to 10 years. It depends on how far back you go and what the average looks like. And I think that as this goes on, the large-scale automated webinar, all of this sort of stuff is going to lose its zest faster than it ever has before. And so I've been, ever since the definition changed last year, I was like, I've got to figure out a way to help people with this. So literally spent the last 6 months writing a book called The Recession Survival Guide. And one of the things that I truly believe will be one of the differentiating factors of businesses who, as more people come into the space and technology and AI gets more and more crazy, is finding ways to hyper personalize what you're doing in order to bring people in and have a genuine H to H connection, human to human, not business to business, not business to consumer, H to H. So you can do that through handwritten notes. You can do that through customized videos where I'm literally saying, hey, Bill, Draye Redfern here. Hey, Susan, Draye Redfern, saying particular things, calling them out by name. And you could do that at scale. Like we sent, I think in December, 3,000 handwritten notes. We used a company to help out with that. You can do things like, if you have any sort of higher ticket offer that you're selling over a couple $1,000, it doesn't take very much effort to make a custom sales page basically for that person, where you're addressing that person by name. So it's someone's coming in by the name of Jill. You could clone a ClickFunnels page or a WordPress page and change the URL slug to include their name and put their name at the top of the page, and then have film a 2-minute video that's like, hey, Jill, Draye Redfern here. Listen, I'm so glad we're going to work together. I really enjoyed that you shared with me X, Y, and Z, and really looking forward to doing A, B, and C. And this is the next steps to get forward. The contract is below this video, yada, 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 whatever your process would be like. That blows people away because it shows two things. Number one, what it's like to work with you, whether you're a financial advisor, an accountant, or you're selling a marketing service or any of that sort of stuff. What it's like to work with you because you're setting the expectation very high from the start when most other people wouldn't. That's part one. But in that video, it shows that you're actually listening to them. So many other people are just like, and they're just like, give me your money. But if you repeat back to them and you're using their name, like Dale Carnegie says, 100 years ago, and How to Win Friends and Influence People, the sweetest sound of someone's ears is the sound of their own name. So you're using it on the page, you're using it in the URL, you're using it in the video, and people go nuts for it. And then you're repeating back to them what they said, what their concerns were. So you're able to address them and their concerns at a very, very customized and personalized feeling nature that just, it feels more human. It feels more genuine. Now, you can't do that across 10,000 different people on a sales page like that, addressing all of their individual concerns. But you can do that in a variety of other capacities. Like for a campaign that we just did a few months ago, we had 1,000 custom videos that we did up of saying each person's name, hey, Bill, hey, Jill, hey, Ba, and the whole thing, addressing each of them in this campaign one by one. At 1,000, it took, obviously it took about a day to get through and, process and, work some of the code to do it. But these are the things that people are going wild for. And I think that's one of the things that we'll see a lot more of in the next year as the, people hold on to the, they're pinching pennies a little bit more and holding on to the pocketbook a little bit more tightly, being a little bit more considerate of where they're spending their money. And so finding unique ways where you can differentiate like that is going to go, I think, a long, long way than it ever has before.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the tool Descript.com?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you use that to customize videos or audios?
We've done it a little bit. I actually had my team custom wrote code so that we can basically have, a 2-second, hey, Jill, hey, Bob, across a series of names, automatically pull those out and then plug it in. And then we have their name that comes across the screen at the same time. So we hard coded and custom made that. But we started with the script. It was a great place that we started with. And I was like, well, famous last words from my team is like, what if we could also, and then they're like, Draye, stop.
Awesome. And what kind of conversion rate differences do you get sending something that's custom as far as a video or handwritten note instead of a regular direct mail piece? How much does that bump up the conversion rate?
2 times minimum usually. You send a regular piece of mail, direct mail, if you're doing pretty decently, you're going to get about a 2% response rate. If you're sending a handwritten note, most of our handwritten stuff that we send is going to be about 5%. If you're sending like some sort of video in the mail, like, a printed video or something along those lines, it's not uncommon to get north of 10%, but it costs a lot more. If you're doing it on a personalized sales page like that, the way that we structure it with, we've got credibility we've helped sharks from Shark Tank and Ben Hardy, and, we stack it with the testimonials and all that sort of stuff. Our page converts at 84%. So if we've obviously had an initial conversation with someone, whether it was initial proposal or they just want an idea or they want to just kick the can around, that converts at 84% for us. You compare that to just sending a PDF proposal via email. Maybe you're in the double digits, just doing it that way. So just sort of taking the traditional things and just taking a slight spin on it. But we're used to getting significantly higher results than you'd probably be used to getting, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you using handwritten.com, I think it is, with the Y?
Written with a Y? Yeah, we've used them a lot. Before we sold the previous business last year, I bought a handwriting printer. So literally, you'd insert your Mont Blanc or your Uniball, whatever you wanted to, and it would digitally, write the thing for you. You could see the ink bleeds and all that sort of stuff. We used, I think, the Ghost something was the name of it. And it's, I think 10, 12 grand for it. But if you're going to do, more than a couple hundred or a couple thousand over the course of a year, it more than pays for itself. But it's very, very cool technology that you can use to take personalization to the next level. Yeah,
that's awesome. Wow. And how did you end up getting that idea to get a machine like that?
I said to myself probably about 10 years ago, because we had it part of our process where every new client would get a hand-signed letter in the mail. It was like, there has to be a better way to do this. And so just spent a lot of research and time doing it 10, 12 years ago. I was like, holy smokes, this actually exists. And then went through and back and forth, and we eventually bought the thing. And in that business, we had 8,700 law firms insured. So, that's 8,700 letters at a minimum every year, not to mention thank yous or all the other sort of stuff you want to send. So it made sense at a scale like that to do it. But even if it didn't, 10 grand, would be worth even trying it out would be worth the time to see it, even if it didn't work. And, but it did. And the technology's gotten even better over the last decade or so. And now you can get it, done for a couple bucks in a variety of different services. And you can implement that with, Zapier Zap and tie it into your, various things in your CRM so that at this day, at this time, trigger a happy birthday card to be sent out that's handwritten with this message that has a mail merge field of XYZ that you can pull from the CRM. And do some really cool stuff to make people feel like, holy smokes, like they're actually paying attention to me. And, most of it can be automated. You just, you hide it better than maybe you could a few years ago.
Wow. Yeah, I think maybe the tool that you bought is called the Ghostwriter or Ghostwriter Max.
Ghostwriter, yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. And what are some of the other really out of the box marketing strategies or tactics that you don't normally hear about, but that you have incorporated into your clients' marketing?
The human element. So I think that, there's this whole thing of you're just one funnel away, or, this and that sort of stuff of, all the marketing stuff and automate everything. But there's still an element of the human element that just makes everything go pop significantly bigger and greater. So, we run sales, like my sales teams run a variety of companies' sales for them. So Ben's stuff, my sales team is selling his high ticket programs. And whether it's him or any of the other sort of clients that we've worked with, one of the best elements that works is just picking up the phone and calling someone when they take some sort of action and they're not anticipating it. So you buy a book, then within 90 seconds, you're getting a phone call from someone on that team saying, hey, this is Bill from XYZ. I just want to thank you for your copy of the book. You're probably watching some of the other videos that you're going through right now. And if that's the case, great. Enjoy those. I just wanted you to have my direct lines. If there's anything else that you need or we can support you here at XYZ Company, we've got you covered. Now, they probably will not answer the phone because most people don't. But they're going to look down and they're going to see the transcription of that video or voicemail. They're going to listen to the voicemail. They're going to go like, holy freaking smokes. You're not going to get a whole lot of callbacks, and that's okay. But the buy rate that so many people have after that is huge because, again, you're setting the expectation at the front end of the relationship that, man, these people just do things differently.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's worthy of remark.
Exactly. And there's so many things like that. So you could trigger like when a Stripe code gets verified, sent into a Google spreadsheet that sends you notification and a pop-up, whatever else, so that this person has to dial them. Like you could do a lot of things like that, but like it's little things like that that just go a long way. So, it's pre-calls before a sales call, saying, hey, this is someone so-and-so from a particular company. I'm just making sure you're good for your 2:00 call with Daniel. And any particular things you want Daniel to make sure that he's prepped with ahead of time. This and this. They're going to tell you some of those objections before, Daniel ever got on the call with them. And so there's finding ways to just insert more of that human element because we all have fears, we all have concerns, we all have objections to whatever it is. But if you can up what we call humanization automation, that H to H and human to human sort of feeling, you can just, truly differentiate yourself from what everyone else out there is doing because it's all, you're right. It's ad to webinar to sales page to upsell to downsell. Thank you. Have a nice day. And you'll never talk to a human. You'll never be able to submit a support request to a human. And, best of luck. That's the world we live in right now. And so the bar is set so low that it's not that difficult to, have some really amazing moments that truly wow people.
Who's a standout example? Maybe even not a client of yours, but somebody that you just really impressed with their human-to-human interactions, the way they've done their video sales letters, their webinar funnel, whatever it is.
There's a lot of people, but I tell you the one that stands out more than anyone is Joe Polish for me. I don't know how he shuts it off. Like, I don't think he does. But, we've been even, this is maybe while it's fresh, he is a dear friend of his and someone I know that's dealing with some health challenges. And he's in the similar space that I am. You can almost call us competitors, which I don't view it that way. I think that there's more than enough room to go around. There's more than enough pieces of that pie. But many people would probably view us as competitors. And he's trying to, connect me with him so that I can help this other person. And I think that it's things like that. It's the perspective of just like being a networker and doing things differently. It is truly, I think that he embodies that more than a lot of other people out there. I don't need to name drop all of the people that I think just try to automate everything. And they're just, you truly are just a number. But when it comes to some of those, unique interactions, I think Joe definitely stands out. Ben Hardy stands out. And then a guy by the name of Howard Getson is also someone who I truly adore. He runs an AI hedge fund. And there's just, dealing with people that are thinking on another level and playing at a different level and operate differently than most. And like I said, it's not that difficult to differentiate yourself these days by just doing more than the bare minimum or what other people are out there doing. And I think that those three would probably be my top three picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Howard. So I know Howard through Genius Network as well, and I've signed up with his newsletter, and I just am really impressed. It's an AI focused, topically focused newsletter. It's not AI written. It's all about AI, and you really keep on the cutting edge of what's happening in the world in terms of AI by just reading his weekly newsletter. It's really good. Yeah, the company is Capital Logics, so we'll include a link in the show notes to his company and to sign up for the newsletter so that our listener can do that too. So what would be an example of AI used in marketing in a way that is quite novel and very effective that you may not have, that our listener may not have heard of or realized is even possible?
You can create an avatar of yourself so that you have your whole body scanned and create an avatar of yourself, and then you can AI your voice at the same time so that you can literally type out a script and your AI avatar can then perform your script and, speak it in your terminology. We've done it. It's pretty cool. If you got a short video and maybe you've got some B-roll cut-ins, it could pass. But that's one of the cool things. I think it's that the technology is going. I wouldn't necessarily jump down that rabbit hole too much just yet because it's not perfect. But that's one of the really cool things. Those tools are Synesthesia and Resemble.ai that we've used for those. And so it's definitely cool that it's going that way. But you can also, like my team, I've got a couple dozen people that work for me now, and we use AI for almost everything, at least as an origination point. I don't think that it's up to where it needs to be, and yet. Legal sites are wrong or some facts are wrong and these sorts of things. But, if you're writing a video script for a landing page or a sales page and you want to make sure you addressed XYZ points in XYZ, past framework like problem, agitate, solution, or whatever other framework you would like to follow, and you want to do it in the voice of a particular person, that can get you 60 to 80% of the way there pretty darn quickly to add in your own self. And you may think to yourself, well, I'm not well known yet, or I am, these websites don't know who I am, et cetera, et cetera. These AI tools may not know who you are, but that's okay because you can do it in someone that is like you. And so someone that and I know, Steve Sims, gave a great example that he's using this as a form. He is not. The ChatGPTs and these things don't know who he is just yet. But he's a bald British guy who's rough around the edges, who's got a funny sense of humor. And as an Englishman, there's got to be someone else like that. Well, Ricky Gervais is pretty dang close. So he has a lot of his tone and tonality and copy written in the tone or formality or style of Ricky Gervais. So it's using these sorts of things so you can dial in your own language faster by modeling, someone else out there that is similar to who you are. And that shortcuts the time to, if you're making copy or writing copy or editing, substantially faster just by finding that person who resembles you. The big AI bots would know who that person is at least. So those are a couple examples I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Just taking that example a little bit further and giving some practical application for our listener. Let's say that, for sake of argument, it's Ricky Gervais that you're most similar to stylistically. You could tell ChatGPT to rewrite a sales letter or a blog post as Ricky Gervais. You could also use an AI tool like character.ai that is kind of an interface to ChatGPT that will take on different characters. So Steve Jobs or whoever, and have it rewrite your content or give you sales tips or marketing tips as that person. So those are just a couple of practical applications that someone could take away and apply right now in their business just through their ChatGPT account.
Pretty cool stuff, and I think it's only going to get better from here. And I think that those businesses that are not using it in some capacity will be at a substantial disadvantage over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And as time goes on, that gap's only going to widen. So it's sort of like the internet. You look at the old ads of like, the newspaper ads or whatever it was. It's like the internet fad is not here to stay. Like, look where we are. That is what it is with AI right now. And it's not a fad. It's not going away. And those businesses that are not actually deploying it in some fashion, or at least being aware of it, are going to have a substantially greater gap to try and overcome as time progresses.
Yeah. And not just being aware of it or kind of theoretically familiar with AI, but actually boots on the ground application of AI. Like playing with it on a regular basis, carving out 15 minutes a day to interact with ChatGPT and try different kinds of prompts and refining the prompting and maybe following up after the output has been generated, asking different kinds of questions about the output, like ChatGPT, how would you rate on a scale of 1 to 10 the accuracy of the response you just gave me, or the scientific validity of it, or the sourcing of the references. Getting in there and trying stuff out is invaluable, and it's not enough just to read books about it or watch YouTube videos.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's like building working out. You got to actually work that muscle for it to grow. You can't just will it and just I'll be fine at just showing up to the gym and getting swole.
Yeah.
No,
I love Joe Polish's quip that he'd love to pay somebody to do his push-ups for him, but he just can't figure out how to make that work.
Yep, 100% accurate.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we're out of time. So if our listener wants to work with you and your agency, if they want to learn from you, be part of your tribe, where do we send them?
There's a couple different spots. It sort of depends on what people need. DrayeRedfern.com is, you can get a hold of me there. DRAYE, red like the color and fern like the plant. It's probably one of the easiest ways. I also own fractionalcmo.com, so fractional help there. And then redfernmedia.com is the agency. But for pretty much any business that may be relevant here as time goes on, recessionsurvivalguide.com will be something that I think will be relevant as time goes on. Just a variety of ways. It's sort of one of my ways that it's going to be one of the sort of I view as one of the ways to give back, is trying to make really high level solutions that a lot of the big boys and girls are using, that have spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars developing, and finding a way to give that to the masses, at a greatly reduced, way and expense, to just try and help as many people as possible. So that'll be the book there in a variety of ways, sort of that I can, help give back as people progress into what may be a time of uncertainty.
Yeah. One thing I learned from Kabbalah is that uncertainty, certainty is not something that is part of this physical realm, the physical plane of existence. That the only way you can get true certainty is by praying for it, and then it's gifted to you from the upper worlds. But otherwise, yeah, it's certain uncertainty is just part and parcel of what we're here to experience. So thank you, Draye. You're up to such cool things, and again, thank you for such a powerful, inspiring story of struggle and conquering just different difficulties and challenges, and making the world a better place.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much.
All right. And thank you, listener. So I hope you're not just inspired, but you are going to take action now. We'll catch you on the next episode. Signing off.